God loved us so that we could love him. And that's the example that he gives to us. And another way to look at it is that he created us so that we in turn can love God. And that's why the most important commandment is to love God with all of our heart, soul, strength, and mind. Because when we love God, when we love God, we in turn receive his love. And when we receive his love, we realize that the love that we've experienced in the world is not always a perfect love. But the love that God gives us is an unconditional love. It's a consistent love. It's a persistent love. It does see the good things in each one of us. It does forgive us when we do things wrong. And when we have that love from God, and that's why he encourages us to seek that love, then we are equipped to love our neighbour. And we learn how to love people the right way. Not with a judgmental love, not with a love that puts ourselves first. But when God first loved us, he didn't put himself first. He put us first. He took the first step, even before we knew him. But the challenge is, it's very easy to love the man next door. It's very easy to love our neighbour in theory. But sometimes it's easy to love our neighbour, but it's hard to love the man next door. It's even hard to love the lady or the man inside, who we are having in a relationship with, to love our spouse. So it's all very good in theory, but when we put it in practice, it becomes a little more complicated. So, as we said, God gave us the example to love him so that we can look at that example and apply it in our own relationships so that we can also love our spouse. The Bible says this is how we know that what love is, that Jesus laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for one another. That's the example that he gives us in our relationships. But, life is not perfect. We're not always a mirror reflection. In our relationships, it's not always a mirror reflection of our relationship with God. We can love God with all our heart, soul, strength, and mind, but it's not always reflected in our relationships with each other. Intimacy, it gives us that example about intimacy and unity and sacredness, how we should have it in our relationships, but we have a challenge because we are always thinking about ourselves. We all put ourselves first in our relationships, and it affects our communications. And even a relationship, even marriages that have looked perfect from the outside, they're not perfect. I remember a couple years ago we knew, and we had breakfast with them one day, and they came out, and they were just talking to each other. Gary, I just love you today. You're just wonderful. And Sarah, I love you too. And Don and I just looked at each other, and is this real? And a few years later, we found out they'd actually divorced. And so what looks good on the outside, we shouldn't always assume that somebody else has all of the answers. But as we share today, we just want to share a little bit about what has helped each of the couples today, so that maybe we can learn some of those and save time and not make some of those mistakes ourselves. So, why do marriages fail? And none of us have all of the answers. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Dana's here. Most of us don't have all of the answers. But when we go into a marriage, many times we rush into a marriage. We spend weddings are a big thing. We have wedding programs on TV about that wonderful image of the perfect wedding, and that perfect day where everything is organized and everybody looks wonderful and have the wonderful photos. But the wedding is just one small part, and we shouldn't rush into a wedding just to experience the wedding, because wedding is just a word. Yeah, wedding is a one-off event, but marriage, it's not a word, it's a sentence. And if you get into the wrong one, it can be a lifetime sentence. So we need to be careful and not rush into marriages. So, Jacob took 7 years to pursue Rachel. Jesus took a long time to pray before he came to earth and died for us. We need to take time before we go into relationships to get to know each other. The grass is always greener on the other side. I saw this ad in the paper. As a friend put an ad in the paper. He wrote, "Wife wanted." Yeah, next day he had 100 email applications. "Oh, you can have mine," he said. But they always look better on the other side. So we should never feel incomplete when we go into a marriage. We should never feel incomplete if we're not married. We have to be complete first in our relationship with God in order to have a solid marriage. A man may think he's incomplete until he's married. But if it's the wrong marriage, he won't be just incomplete, he'll be finished. So we've got to be careful when taking that first step. My mother, she couldn't, my dad was telling me years ago before, that my mum couldn't cook when they were first married. And in the beginning, all she could do was boil water. And he had to teach her to cook. And, some men, when they first get married, they may think that the wife thinks that they're a god. Because every time they have a meal, she brings him a burnt offering. When we take that step to marriage, we get to know each other better. It's not always So, marriage should be built on feelings and not commitment. Marriage should be built on commitment and not feelings. There's nothing wrong with feeling. It's good to hear that you're listening. So, feelings are important, but they were never created by God to be our compass in life. Because in a relationship, we always have different feelings. In the beginning of a relationship, as I said, we experience that wonderful feeling where that other person is perfect and everything about them is just wonderful but that's not a reason to get married. That's not a true reflection on what love is. Marriage is all about choosing to love even when you don't like that person sometimes. It's true, you may not like some of their actions, but you still have to choose to love them. You don't turn away from that situation. On the first day after you're married, you wake up the next morning, you may learn something about your new spouse that you didn't know before. You're laying there and you wake up the next morning, you've had your wedding, you haven't even opened your eyes yet. You can smell bad breath of your spouse. Everybody has a morning breath. But you don't think of these things before you go into the relationship. But you still have to persist and choose to love each other. When we go to Facebook, some people look for the likes. When we're struggling in a relationship, we need to look at what we like about our partner. But the problem is when we become negative, we always look at the bad things. We don't look at the positive things about our partners. And we don't like to look at, so one of the tricks is to think about the things that you first knew were a blessing from your partner when you first knew them. So when you get in difficult times, you look back at the original reason that you fell in love with that person, with that man or that woman. Jesus gave us this example. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church. And Christ was committed when he gave his life for the church. We need to have that same commitment for each other, because love is not real without commitment. Without commitment, love is not real. God can still bless us, but this is the example God gives for us. And love, marriage has a purpose. I was thinking today, one of the purposes, one of the things I learned from marriage, if I wasn't married, I could have gone my whole life without anyone pointing out all my faults. It's a good thing. It's the same as when you have children. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn about how selfish you are and about your relationship with God. See, marriage in the world, when they give you a marriage certificate, it's effectively a contract. But a contract is something between two parties that don't trust each other. When they give you a contract in the world, it's between two people who don't trust each other. And each person is concerned about their own best interests. But marriage, Christian marriage, a true marriage, is not based on a contract, it's based on a covenant. When Jesus gave his life for us, he entered into a covenant with us. And a covenant is not based on feelings. A covenant is timeless. A covenant is selfless. A covenant has no self-interested strategy. The opposite to a contract. So, again, he gives us the example to enter into a marriage as a covenant. There's no escape clause. But it's not always easy. It's not always easy. We go into it, we go into the marriage, and things change over time. In the first year of marriage, the man's very patient and he listens to his wife. Second year of marriage, the wife, she listens to the man. And third year of marriage, neither of them listen to each other. The neighbours listen to both of them. Marriage is not 50-50. It's not a contract. If we go into a marriage thinking, I'm going to give 50%, they give 50%, then it causes everybody to start calculating. The temptation is to keep score. I've done this, so you should do that, and you've done that, and I should do this. But in a marriage, we shouldn't be calculating, because many times we use different measurements to calculate our points. You're the breadwinner, whether it's the lady or the man. The breadwinner goes to the office or does their job, and they've worked very hard, and they think, I've worked very hard, and I've brought the money into the house, and I deserve to be spoiled because I've given this money to the house, and I've worked with a boss, and they haven't been sensitive, and they give themselves 1,000 points. But then they go home, and the person who stayed home, maybe looking after kids, has been thinking, I worked all day in a thankless job with kids who just wanted to boss me around, and nobody appreciates me, and it would have been so simple in an office, and I deserve to be spoiled when they get home. They keep different measurements of their own scores, and that's the danger of going into a relationship with a 50-50 attitude. The temptation is to give less so that we're never giving more than our share. And that's wrong. That's a dangerous way to go into a relationship. A relationship should be based on always giving 100% of yourself. When Jesus gave himself for us, he didn't give 50%. He gave 100% even before we knew him. so that we could have a relationship with him. But the modern day definition of partnership, of his and hers, is very dangerous. Two wrongs don't make a right. Yeah, there was one couple, they had an argument, and they wanted to give each other the silent treatment. And two wrongs don't make a right, you know. And this guy, he had a very important meeting, and he wanted his wife to wake him up at 5 a.m. the next morning, but he didn't want to be the one to speak first, because they hadn't spoken for like 3 days. So he wrote her a yellow sticker and said, "Please wake me up at 5 a.m. Very important." So he went to bed. Next morning at 8:30, he wakes up, looks at the clock. It's 8:30. What happened? Why didn't you wake me up? She finds a sticker. It's 5 a.m. Wake up. Two wrongs don't make a right. If we're calculating in our attitude, in our communication, our relationship, things just don't work. Self will always put an end to love. And the example that God gave us is that he did not put himself first. And love will put an end to self. The more we love somebody, the more we love God, the more we take our eyes off ourselves. And the more we love somebody else, the more we take our eyes off ourselves. The more one dies to themselves, the more the relationship thrives. We need to die so the relationship thrives. Because love is not self-seeking. One of the problems is we think divorce will solve all of our problems. You know, if we get divorced, then we're going to escape from this terrible situation. But it's a huge myth, because the reality is many times after divorce, we still have those same problems. The same as we try and take the speck out of somebody else's eye and we ignore the plank in our own eye, we do that in our relationships, and it doesn't work. You know, I was when I took my father to the doctors last year, there was another man there. He was seeing the doctor, and he said, "Doctor," he said, "my wife is just she's deaf. She's going deaf." And the doctor said, "Look, I'll give you a test so you can see how deaf your wife is." So, you know, the husband went home, and he got to the door and he said, "Hello, darling," he said, "I'm home for dinner." He said, "What's for dinner?" He got no response. So he walked into the lounge room and he, "Hello, darling," he said, "I'm home, what's for dinner?" And no response. He knew she was upstairs in the bedroom, so he stood at the door. "Hello, darling, I'm home, what's for dinner?" No response. So finally, he touches her on the, "Hello, darling, I'm home, what's for dinner?" And she turned around and said, "I've answered you 4 times, she said. We're having spaghetti for dinner," she said. The guy was deaf, not she. But we always want to put our own problems onto somebody else. You know, we need to fight for each other in a relationship rather than fight with each other. We need to pray for each other rather than fight with each other. Because when we go, whether we go from one church to another church, or from one relationship to another church, to another relationship, then it's usually a reflection of ourselves. And the more we humble ourselves, blessed are the poor in spirit, then the more successful we can be in a church relationship or in a relationship in a marriage. You know, one thing we learned in Japan was, in Japan, you know, the guys work, many times it's the men who work 14, 15 hours a day. They're out of the house, they come home, and many times they come home after drinking because they don't want to come home, so they go out drinking so they get home later. In the meantime, the lady's been at home looking after the children. Children grow older, kids get spoiled, and at the end, when the child leaves home, there's not only an empty nest, but there's an empty relationship also. So one of the dangers is that we're thinking always about the happiness of our children at the expense of the health of our relationship or the health of our marriage. We're not here to bring up happy kids. We're here to bring up well-adjusted adults who love God and can make a contribution to society. If we raise purely selfish children who are always thinking about themselves, and we put them before our relationship, then it's not good for them, and it's not good for the relationship. One of the greatest gifts that we can give to our children is the security of living in a home where their mum and or their dad have a relationship with Christ, a Christ-centered marriage. But when we take our eyes off that and we're thinking always about our children, of course we love children, we do anything for our children, but for the longevity and healthy longevity of a relationship, we shouldn't put the children above the marriage. I remember once when I was, 10, 11 years old, I asked my mother, who do you love more, my dad or me? I don't know why I asked it, but I did ask that question. And I remember her answer. She said, I love Dad, of course. And of course, as a little 10-year-old, my heart was broken. But I'm glad she gave me that answer. Because that was healthy for her relationship with her husband, and it was healthy for my growth. If my mother is my greatest love in my life, then it's not a good thing. So, and one thing we realized in our relationship, in our marriage, is that children are very, very sensitive to the conversations, to the atmosphere in the home. Children can sense when there's friction between parents. Children they're not silly, and it can be reflected in their own behavior. So the most healthy thing you can do for your children is to have a healthy relationship with your spouse. Put God first, family second, and work last. God, family, and work. So, that's some examples of why people break up. But we have, as I said, the example that we love Him because He loved us.
First of all, with David and Patricia, as they've been married the longest among the three here. All right. So one of the first questions is this: you guys have been married for more than 30 years. Congratulations. All right. It's a milestone. And what would be you would say the key reasons for your successful marriage? And with the same time, and one of the key things will be how to affair-proof your marriage for all these years. How do you do that?
The first part of the
Okay, you've been married for 30 years, all right? And what would you say is the key reasons for the success of your marriage?
For me, I think it's communication. Because I think if you cannot communicate your issues, like what Pastor was saying about silent treatment. When we were courting, silent treatment was a very popular thing. When we get upset with each other, there's going to be silent treatment for a while. But after we got married and after we went through also similar sort of marriage enrichment courses, we realized that was the last thing you want to do. Because you need to be able to say what is wrong, how are you feeling, why are you feeling upset? And the easiest way to get over the silent treatment situation is you speak up. And we've learned to do that a lot of times, and what I found is we learn to be not afraid to say things that are personal to you, that affects you very, very badly, that your spouse may not be aware of. So what I will sometimes do is I will say, we really need to talk, and what you're doing bothers me this way, and you need to stop. Then at least suddenly, then half the time she will actually say, oh, I didn't realize that that's how you feel, right? And that's how we overcome the silent treatment situation, whereby sometimes if you do the silent treatment, you are waiting for a response from the other parties. You're thinking that if I give her the silent treatment, then she might say, what's wrong with you? But the person may not even know you are upset. So you may not even get that question as to what's wrong with you. And what will happen is the other party just gets upset. Then you just go apart. So the easiest way for me is I just say something is wrong, let's talk.
Communication is the key. So we've heard that silence is golden, but not all the time.
Yes.
It's not all the time. Not all the time it's golden. So sometimes you got to break the silence. So did you miss your early morning appointment? No, I'm just kidding. Based on Pastor Neil's story earlier on. Pat, let's have some reflections on that. Thank you.
The other thing is the preferring of the other person over yourself. As Pastor Neil said, marriage is 100%. And it's actually considering the person more over yourself. Because that way, then, like what Pastor Neil says, that's kind of, we reduce the element of selfishness. Because what you want to do is you want to love the person more. And that really, for me, shows. I mean, David would, when tired and he's tired, but he would just take the let me get that for you, even though he's tired himself. But because he prefers me over him, and that is love. Granted, in the beginning of marriage, it's always not easy. Because two different persons, two totally different backgrounds, coming together, and there's a clash of personalities. Because courting period is always, lovey-dovey. You overlook everything. You only see the person, and you love and love and love. But when you get married, like Pastor Neil says, the day after, you wake up and you smell that, or you see it like, whoa, last night she was so beautiful. This morning, all bare. Like, where's this girl of mine, right? So definitely the preferring over, yeah. And the other thing about a fair proof of marriage, it is so important to a fair proof of marriage. Everybody, whether man or woman, is vulnerable to falling in a marriage. And for me, I guess when I grew up, I saw firsthand how a marriage broke up. And it taught me something. My aunt, who was a beautiful lady, when she got married, so beautiful, but the marriage broke up. And subsequently I found out, because as you're growing up, you hear, when they're talking, the adults are talking. It was because of her attitude, the way she took care of herself. When my uncle comes back from work and she would be all grumpy, and not taking care of one's looks. I mean, I look beautiful for one person alone, for him. Not for anyone else's eyes, but for him. And it's to hear him say, actually on a daily basis, you look good, you look beautiful. And that, for me, for a woman, is one of the ways you fair-proof your marriage. So that his eyes do not wander and look at someone else.
Oh, that's powerful. Let's hear from you, David, especially you are a businessman, you travel a lot. There's always a constant, pressures down out there. So thank you.
Yeah, for me actually, I take the word, or rather the story from David. I'm David too, so I'm even more careful, right? So you flee from temptation. The best defense is to flee and don't even get yourself into a situation where you're tempted. So what I often do is I actually avoid going out like on a one-on-one meeting with any ladies. If I ended up with meetings on a one-on-one, I always bring up, in discussions, just normal talk, I'll say, what do you normally do on Sundays? And invariably, they'll ask me the same question, right? So that's a way for me to say, I go to church on Sunday. And that starts to allow you to draw the line, right? Once you mention church, you really sort of say, I'm not going to do anything that's going to be against God. And then I talk about my family, I talk about my children, I always say that, because I'm older than most of the people I meet. And I always say to them that you can be my daughter. Because my daughter is my son about your age. Right? So once you say things like that, you sort of prepare yourself to not get into that situation where you talk. And I think the most dangerous thing is that you can do is to talk about personal things. Once you bring up personal things, then you start on a route where you go the wrong way. Yeah. So for me, it is really the defensive part is important. Once you set your mind to be on the defensive side, and then you go to the meeting, you won't get caught in that kind of situation.
One of the things is as our church, and our churches, we have a lot of people who travel, whether it's in the airline industry or, when you go for the meeting and all that, and you get to, or maybe some of them who are traveling, you reach your destination, you have a few days, few hours, you sleep, go to the hotel, and you're just all by yourself. Your meeting's over, maybe you're not, but there's a constant temptations, whether it's for a man or for the woman, whether it's watching stuff on the television, is there something you can give us some thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, we Skype every night, we talk every night. As far as I'm concerned, I don't go out for any, I just don't like to be outside. So I usually tell the people that I meet that you don't have to entertain me, you don't have to bring me to places. Because some places, there was one meeting we went in Vietnam, and the real estate broker was totally blunt. He basically said, do you want girls? If you're looking at him, you're like, what do you think we're here for? And then we straight away struck him off the list of one of the brokers we use, right? And we were shocked that he was so blunt, right, straight to the point. So we avoid that. We Skype every night, so that helps. As far as TV is concerned, you can tell. I don't bother watching TV, so it doesn't bother me. But I've heard that people can actually tell the receptionist downstairs to block off the TV,
right.
And then you don't have to worry about it. But I'll bring up something about what she said about the wife dressing up for the husband, because I think that's very important for ladies to listen. Because as a man, I can attest to that, right? You see, like for us men, we work in the industry. In the office, we come across or we meet professionals who are well dressed. They dress up for the work. Or you may have executive assistants that work with you. They're all dressed up. They're all beautiful. They're younger, and they serve you. Right? You go to the office. They bring, especially in Canada, nobody serves you. But in Hong Kong, they bring you tea. They bring you stuff. Right? Depends on where you work, I guess. So they treat you like a boss, right? And you can imagine if I'm at work and I'm treated like a boss, and I go back home, I see this lady walking in and she's in the house coat with bunny slippers, and her hair's all tied up, and then she's grumpy, That's what would drive a man to do the things that he didn't want to do in the first place. But if day after day he comes home and he meets this new woman that is totally different from who he met, a few years ago, that's what will drive him to think things that he shouldn't be thinking. So that's important for ladies to understand.
Thank you very much. So communication is a key thing, and also preference. Those things are very scriptural too. So thank you so much for, sometimes 30 years you think it's a lot of things. Sometimes those little things, it's like little hinges are the ones that make big doors swing, and so little things like that makes it. Thank you so much, David. Pat, we'll come back to you. Andy and Penny, we got a question for you guys. This is more of a spiritual question for you. We'll start from there. All right. Why is it so important, for you, your family, to have a Christ-centered, a faith-based family?
Sure. Actually, it's very simple, guys. As those who know me, I've been through a divorce. Without God, I could literally tell you it would have happened again. Because in a relationship, before we knew God and we come to church, we only look at others and point at others and want the whole world to change for us, for ourselves. And we never think or look at the mirror and look at ourselves. And between a marriage of two persons, if you use that kind of mentality, you will never last long, and you will never go far, because your need will change, your partner's need will change, and if it's not a Christ-centered marriage, that everything has a purpose and meaning in life that are above what you personally want or what you like or dislike, it ain't gonna last long. And like Pastor Liu said, it's not the children, it's not the money, it's not your work. All those are part of it. But if you put it, those are the main foundation of your marriage, you're bound to fail, because in life, in work, you run into trouble. Or my case was with my failure previous marriage was with early successes in life. When you were young, you get too prideful. You don't listen to anybody. You don't see problem with the others. You only see you don't see people with yourself. You only see problems with others. And without Jesus, to guide us, and it's not only up to our. This is more than 10 years now. If not without Jesus to continue to guide us, we will still run into problems. So it is not only important, it's vital that in marriage we continue to place the Lord, bring Jesus into the home, or bring into your marriage. And different cases you need Jesus at different times, but as long as you put him there, it's important. I just tag on the question Pastor John asked David just now, because I travel to a lot. Whether I was in China or Indonesia, because of the kind of people, unfortunately, in the outside world that we have to mix with, you get temptations. And if not for Christ, you easily fall back into those traps. Now, for me now, sometimes I'm not very good with verses. If everybody invites me out for those kind of places, what I do, I will sing, Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need. You have to remember that. Otherwise, you ain't gonna last far. And this will not only stop today, it will continue to challenge you. So if you don't come to church, if you don't pray, if you don't listen, to follow the Bible, and we always say sometimes, this is what I truly learned. We always say, where is that still small voice? Right? We always say, God always have this still more small voice to us. For husband or man, ain't no still more voice. This is the voice. Listen to them. Listen to them. There's no still more small voice.
Same question.
You'd like to share something on that?
Yeah, that to put God as the center of our marriage. It's not something that's very easy to do. Very often, the problems that we face, the quarrels and the arguments that we had, will always overtake. You know, at that moment when you are upset or when you hurt each other with all kinds of words, it always overtakes. And then after a while, you have to keep reminding yourself that we have to put God first. We really have to put God first. And only when you put God first, and then you'll be able to see, and then have the patience to humble ourselves, or whether to be the first one to start speaking or talking, opening things up over and over again. Is always like, it can be like, me again? You mean I have to say sorry? I didn't even do anything wrong, that kind of stuff. But yes, even if it's 70 times 70, 700 times, just do it, because it's all worth it, It's really worth it. What we both, our is still renovation in progress, we are not perfect. There's still a lot of areas that we have to improve. But I am really grateful because I'm beginning to see, in fact, just of late, just about half a year ago, and I'm beginning to really see a lot of differences in our marriage, in him, in myself, especially in him. The things that every wife would, or every partner would think that, I want to see him change, I want to see her change, I hope. But, prayer as well. Prayer. Yeah.
Thank you. Amen. Christ-centered families, Christ-centered, it's a key. I'm sure that's the same with David Pat too. That's what, it's so important. Keep that in mind. A Christ-centered family, a marriage. God is not part of your family, not part of your marriage. He's a center. Amen. He's a foundation. Let's go to Dennis and Alalie real quickly. And we have a question for them is, as parents of very small children, and we do feel them sometimes here. In a few moments we're going to feel them until the service is over. Beautiful boys. We love them. All right. As parents of very small children, what are some of the challenges that you have in parenting them?
All right. The challenges, I think, is that the time. Because both of us are working, and he comes at night at 7, and I come home at like around 5. And then by the time I come home, I make sure that I will have time with my kids, like helping them to finish their homework, like this, have time to play with them. But then the challenges is that, because we have 7, 4 years old, and 2 years old. So it's quite challenging because sometimes they really do fight. Yes, right?
They do?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because and then they normally, because they all have same interests, I guess. Because, when in terms of playing toys, because they all want to play. So I think most of the time they do that. And also, I think is they don't listen at their age, really. They don't listen. Like, for example, when I ask my 7-year-old son, and like, okay, Andre, have 30 minutes snack time, right? So, okay, before we do your homework. So that time, whenever I ask him like, do your homework after 30 minutes, and then he won't listen to me. He will like, you didn't give me enough time. I haven't played yet. Something like this. He know how to reason out as well, and those are the challenges really, because they is at their age maybe it's like they are more into playing, and they want to have more time to play, even though at school I always remind him like, come on, you've been playing in this school for how many hours, and then it's time for us to study, and then it's just that it's not listening. So the tendency is that sometimes I yell. I really do yell at my children if they don't listen, just to get their attention. It's like, Andre, how many times did I call you? It's like, this is my third time, 5th time. Those are the challenges for me, because it's very hard for them to explain that or to teach them like, this is I want you to do, like every time I get home I want you and me to study, something like that. So those are the challenges. I think the kids are not listening, they fight you know. And it's not really enough time. We don't have enough time for them. Because most of the
Time
time
will be the greatest challenge.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure also the dynamic of 3 boys.
Yeah.
We're not talking about boys and girls. 3 boys. I mean, that's quite a bit. You got your work cut out for you. You know. But we believe in faith. Amen. They'll be all right. Yes, Dennis.
For me, I believe, I guess, how I discipline my son and yet showing love for them. The closest example that I have is probably my father. My father actually is that when he seldom inflict harm to us or use spanking as a discipline. But when he do, it's very, very hurtful, terribly great. So that's the closest example that I got. Many times I got this kind of a experimental parenting that I will do to my kids. What I usually do is to let them stand on the wall. For time it would work. It would work probably for at least a couple of minutes, but they do find some ways how to enjoy it.
Spider-Man?
Yeah, what we usually do is that our walls is full of a kind of a littering or whatsoever. So I space them out so that they would not talk to each other. So couple of late is that lately that doesn't work. So what I did is that try to when they push my button to spank them. And many times that when I do that is that my heart also bleeds. So it hurts. Not quite sure why. Probably that's a normal feeling, but I do take refuge to the biblical passage that says that discipline a child and the way he should go, so that when they grow old, they will depart from it. That's really true, and it's still I'm struggling in that because I do right now do some spanking, and right now every time I do spanking, of course they cry, and that time is that I do have this kind of guilt feeling, which I'm trying to recover out of that, but I do believe that that's the way that it should go. And after doing it is that my wife and I had to explain why did I have done it. I have to explain deliberation, why did I spank, and what he should do next time. And the tendency to, as a father, to control the one situation or to control a child is very, very tempting. I believe as a father, our role is not really to control them, but really to reinforce them and see that to be who they are, to reinforce them that it's okay to be who they are. In that particular situation, that's why we have to explain them that when they get mistakes, they have to be spanked. And additionally is that as much what my wife is saying is that time. I think just a coincidence that Pastor John choose somebody or all of us that travels a lot. A couple of years ago or last years I traveled a lot. I consciously said to myself that I have to stop traveling. I told to my boss that we need to hire somebody doing it, because one is that when I travel, I did not get this. I got a physical. I do have this physical pain after traveling. And second is that every time I get back home, always my child said to me that, "Oh, I miss you, Dad. I miss you, Dad," like this every time. 3 days. I went back to Philippines for 3 days ago. I can see my child shouting. They were in the bus task, "Dad, I miss you." So I make a conscious effort or consciously saying to my boss that I have to stop traveling just to spend time with my kids. So that I think is the greatest for me decision that I have done. It is understandable in my job, and I think that would help me, I think, along the way.
Good. Thank you very much. I do appreciate all of your openness and just being honest about where you guys are. And you can see, I think we can learn from that together. I'm going back to David and Pat. We're going to make a shift on now. We're talking about children. We talk about small children. Now I want to talk about grown-up children. And the question for you is, your children are working adults, David and Pat. As children, as Christian parents, a couple of questions. Firstly, as Christian parents, do you provide spiritual covering for them still? Now that they're grown up, they're adults. And do you still need to pray for them? If yes, why?
Yes, we still provide spiritual covering for them, although they're adults. But we believe as parents, that is our duty to do so. And I guess for us, it's, if I look back, because I see spiritual covering, it is as what parents will be actually parental blessings over the children. And it is biblical. I mean, you see back in the Old Testament where Isaac blessed his children. Well, in this case, Jacob, because Esau, sold his right. And then later on, Jacob blessing his sons, and also blessing the grandchildren, Ephraim and Manasseh. And so we strongly believe in the spiritual covering. We pray separately, and we also pray together for the children. And the other thing that we've been doing, and I guess I learned this from when I was a very young Christian, and an eldest wife in the church, talked about praying for the spouse for your children. And I said, you're kidding. My children only 1 year old and like 6 or 6, yeah. Even if from the womb you should already start praying, and that, kind of struck a note with me. And so we've done that, and not only that, what we've done also, we've taken it further, that when it's their birthdays, we actually pray a special parental blessing, a mother's blessing, a father's blessing. And then Christmas, we do that. First day of New Year, we do that. First day of Chinese New Year, we do that. And birthdays, right? And so we take every opportunity that we can to pray over them, to bless them. And even my daughter and our daughter-in-law, I mean, we choose, whenever we get a chance to, when we meet, before they leave after the visit, we will make sure that there will be a blessing. Why? First of all, because we see it in that's biblical, is biblical. Secondly, it's because we love our children. And we want to make sure, the one thing is, we want to make sure that the enemy knows there's a boundary. No trespassing. And we tell the enemy off, you want anything, you come to us first. You want to get to my children, you have to come through me, through us. And we make it very clear, and we make it very clear to our children as well. And why we want to bless them, and they really love to receive the blessings. And the other thing, although our children even, they are now working adults, one is 29 and the other one, the younger one is 23. And every time we meet as a family, because now we're, different parts of the world, but when the family comes together, the one thing that they've always loved from little, the family hugs. Even now, when my son is 29 years old, family hug, because it's the love that they see, because they see David and I always hugging each other. Always, we're very open with our affection at home. We kiss in front of them, we hug, and they see that. And then we also choose to do the same thing with them, hug and kiss them. So, as parents, if you haven't done that before, it's not too late. Start now. I encourage you. And start praying, for your children's spouses, your future in-laws, that they come from families, who love the Lord and will love your children.
That's right. Thank you so much. That's so good. I've just been thinking about it, having a similar thought this week. How as parents, especially young parents, we started the education fund for our kids. When they were even kids, what is this education fund for them to go to university? They're not even finished kindergarten. Correct? We put the money aside. because you're preparing them for university and for how much, but we don't think about praying for them, for their partners, for their spiritual life, like Pastor Neil addressed a while ago. Jesus prepared himself, so it's very important, as much as we prepare, like, school and finances and all that, and spiritually it's important as much, so as early as possible, time of, even before you think, if some of you are going to have, married, and even before, pray way ahead, amen, before all that, and and I think that's it's so important, amen. So they won't be running back and forth relationships and this and that, and they'll have solid relationships. Amen. Thank you. So now we're going to go to Andy and Penny. Both of you, you come from some setbacks in relationships in the past. Okay, I'm not going to use the word failures because we don't want to use failures. We learn. Okay, so I'm just going to use setback. Setback. Okay, whatever, some of the things you have addressed, Andy, a while ago. And I believe, Andy and Penny, that there are individuals who, in this very room, who are listening to you guys, and who might be in a very similar situation, or they have journeyed in a place the way you have had. Can you share some of the challenges and difficulties you faced in moving forward? And even maybe the time when you guys have come together, like I think you did mention some of the things that comes to your mind about you failed. So what are some of the challenges that you guys faced in moving forward?
As men, I guess, I don't know, I have seen it and heard it from most men. We have a very bad kind of attitude or habits. We like to drag things around. When even it's an issue, we drag the floor. You can see we just drag. The men tend to do that. Women are more. You guys cut it and you move on. Men like to drag, and the men like to look back. Think of the good old things. Try to play sentimental, and Penny always said that. I mean, you listen to old music, you want to rekindle the old memories. Man tends to do that, and you think it's a good thing because before I found God, you want to be the Superman, the superheroes. Your pride, you want to admit your mistakes. So all these things you will just drag like a baggage you carry with you, and if you never let it out or never let it go, it only gets heavier and heavier and heavier because we just tend to drag them. So for us to move on over the last 10 years, if I never learned how to, 12 years. If I never learned how to, more than 10 years, okay? If one or ourselves never learn to put all these baggage down and follow the Bible and move on with life, that you don't take the past as a failure, like Pastor John said, you take that as a lesson, and you make sure you don't bring that baggage to your new life, and you don't repeat the same mistakes with your another opportunity given by God to you, and until you get over that, it will be always very difficult to move on because of this heavy burden that we carry, and it is important that's why you come to church and you listen, and what I said, you listen to the still more small voice next to you, because the only person in this world, honestly, man, we know the only person in this world that is going to be blunt to you and tell you exactly what you should do and what is good for you is your spouse. Even your boss will take care of your feelings sometimes because he still needs you. But your wife have no mercy. No mercy at all. Okay? So, in order for you to move on, if you don't listen to that and you find that nagging, sometimes we feel like they're nagging or they're talking too much, but if you don't listen to that, if you change, they don't have to say it again. Because we don't change, they repeat it over and over and over again. So, man, as soon to be husbands in the future, never say your wife next. It's because we don't change, men don't change, or we like to carry on doing our how to say, our boyhood things, our hobbies, our bad attitudes or mentalities or whatever. If your wife stops nagging, you've done it. Because if she doesn't talk to you anymore, you're in big trouble. If she stops nagging, it's a good sign. So make sure you understand the difference between stop talking to you or stop nagging. So yes, like I said, we learn from the past. It will always be with us. It's part of our lives. You can't change that. You have to admit it and put it down and move on. Just like all the mistakes we make. Lay down on the floor and move on.
Yeah, we both had failed marriages. Yeah, both of us. So he had we had trust issues. I had trust issues on my side, trusting men basically, because I just don't trust men. And I came from a broken home myself, so I was kind of taught and drilled to my mind not to trust men. 50-50 was what I used to think. Yeah, I give 50, and I give 20, you give 80. I was taught that way. So trust was an issue, and he had trust issues as well, because we're being really open here. He had issues of trusting me, probably in finances and all that stuff. So, and I had issue trusting him when he travels and whatever, and when he goes to work and all that. So that was how it all got started. It got really, really bad. It was so bad that you can never imagine. Every little quarrel and argument, we thought of just throwing the marriage out the window. It was that bad. But we hang on. I hang on. I don't know whether he wanted to hang on, but I want to hang on. Yeah, but we hang on. So we prayed, and I knew that I have to trust in God. That I said, God, there's a reason why that you're giving me a second chance, and that you bring this man to my life, and I know I'm going to make this work. And the second thing, besides trust, I have to have trust. I have to start trusting him. I can no longer do 20-80 or 30-70. I have to learn to trust. I don't know whether he's trusting me yet or not, but I have to trust. Okay? So I learned to trust. I tell myself I can't love without 100%. I have to love him 100%. So which I did from the very beginning. And number two, I take my marriage vows very seriously this time. It's not something that you would just throw it out the window. It's not something that you say, oh, they'll do the spot, but every little thing you say, shucks, I can't take this anymore. Since one failed, one was no difference, second or third. So I took it very seriously. I said I want to make this work. Whether it takes me 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I'm going to make this work. So that's how I hang on to it, and I hang on to God. Prayer is the number one thing. Every little thing, every little difficulty you have in a marriage, every problems you bring it to the Lord, every problems you have, even with your children, with your parents, with each other and everything, is prayer and prayer and prayer. Nothing else but prayer. Prayer will bring your man home. Prayer will bring your woman back. Prayer will bring your marriages back.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. It's God, and you have to put God first and then prayer. Because sometimes we have problems with spouses that are not Christians, are not saved yet. So prayer will bring him or her trust him. It can happen. It will happen. So I know that we are where we are today. It is him. It is through prayer that we are still together, and we are together. We're going to be forever together.
you gotta understand, for those of you who heard Penny's testimony, the complexity that was involved in it, not just in a previous relationship, but the religious, connection and everything that was involved in it. It is not easy. You got to hear her testimony. It's truly, for those of us know them, it's really a miracle of God. And trust, absolutely. And that's what we asked earlier on. The question is, why is it so important to have a Christian-based family? Amen. One of the things about relationship is, I just want to throw this out to you. Many times we make friends based on our history, not based on our destiny. Because we always make friends that helped us or ruined us in the past. But we need to make friends, relationships, that will help us to propel and enter our destiny. Did you hear that? Yes. Because if you get friends like in the past, they're going to pull you back. One of the interesting thing is we always attract people like of our past. The hurt people always come to hurt together. The people of sin, they always come together. But we got a conscious decision, like what Andy and Penny, yes, this happened. Yes, we see that, but we're going to make some conscious decisions here, faithful decisions. We're going to pray, we're going to learn to trust and put that together. So thank you so much. Let's make relationship based on the people who help us to go press into a destiny. Okay, let's go. This is going to be a good one right here. Okay, Dennis and Annalie. Oh, welcome to Valentine's Day. What do you guys do to keep your romance in your marriage? Well, you can keep the privacy part to yourself, but things that are, we don't want PG-13 stuff, but we just want everybody to hear general stuff. But, earlier on the question was the demands of young children. You talk about time, you talk about travel,
Exactly.
All that. How do you keep that? You guys seem happy. See me? Do they seem happy? Yeah. Okay, we see you guys every week and all that. What do you guys do?
Well, my kids are actually the romance killer at home. They seem to pop up during romantic situations. Just kidding. Actually, what we did is we just 2.5 years ago, Pastor Neil actually conducted a seminar about marriage. So in that seminar, we learned actually to really spend time together without the kids. So we do have the conscious decisions that once a week we have time together. We go out together without the kids, and we save money so that we could go outside without the kids and travel, the two of us. And additionally is that how we handle intimacy, especially in Hong Kong, wherein we're just contained in 4 square walls. And what we did is that we handle intimacy by showing our kids, like Alili actually, she likes to be massaged. So on those situations that she likes to be massaged, I massage it in front of the kids. My kids actually also joining us. Andre is massaging Alili in the face like this. And what we did is that we do it especially in times wherein the kids are actually already sleeping. So we do go out. No, not the one that's in your mind.
What are you thinking? Come on. You're in church. What are you guys thinking? Go ahead, Dennis. Go ahead. You go ahead.
When the kids are actually sleeping, we do go outside and we talk about everything, what's happening in the day, what's happening outside, like her kids, our kids, what's happening, her school, our school. So that makes us closer together. So we think about intimacy, it's something like to go intimate and like that. But what for ourselves is actually just spending time together, talking to each other, what's happening in our family, my workplace, her workplace. And we do that without the kids around, and it works out well. Because when kids are around, we tend to prioritize our kids, and they are really a romantic killer in our spending time. And I guess for Alili is that she told me that it's also the trust. Trusting that I may hold on no matter what in our marriage. So many times she told me this, that you're not doing this for me. Every decisions that you're doing is not for me, but you're doing it for the Lord. So, wherever I am in, whatever situation I'm in, I'm always reminded on that everything is not for her or for my children, but everything is for the Lord. So that gives me a guidance. Thanks.
He spoke for you already?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. We're going to make this last round of questions here, but this is now, I know we talked a lot about family, marriage, but this is going to help all those who are single here. All right? But who else better to speak about it than the ones who have been single before? All right? And then this couple's right here. By the way, Pastor Neil and Pastor Dan, that's a fruit right there for your 6 weeks of labor. Is that correct? Amen. Praise God for that marriage makeover they did. We've got to do that again. I think it's such a better, and it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Right here, there's a fruit offering. Amen. All right, let's get to David and Pat. As a Christian, why is it important for the individual to marry a believer? What will be the implication if he or she marries an unbeliever?
You know, when we were both married, we were actually, I was definitely a non-believer. She was actually Roman Catholic. And then she became a retired Catholic. After she married me. Yeah. So that's the danger, right? When you marry someone who is a non-believer, you tend to gravitate towards what he does. And those days, my parents were Taoist/Buddhist. So we actually ended up having an altar in the house. And she basically, and I guess that's the difference too, right? If you're a strong Christian, then you know the difference between an idol worshipping and what's right and what's wrong. But if you are a weak Christian, then you get swayed so easily to the non-believer's belief. And she just got swayed right away. And she even used the joysticks and everything. And we got married, there were pictures of us using the joysticks and all that. And then it was when we then became Christians, then that's when we realized, what the Bible teaches, everything is good for us. And since then we've grown. And if I look back, I can say the dangers of marrying someone who is a non-believer is firstly, there's going to be a lot of issues that you will have disagreement with. And I mean, you imagine if you just normal Christian marriage, you already have issues that you don't agree with, right? If you're a non-believer, or if one of you is a non-believer, there are going to be even more issues that you cannot agree with. Things like tithing, things like even going to church, right? You're going to church on Sunday and then the party at home is sitting there probably grumpy and upset because you're away. And if you spend too much time in church or you spend time in cell groups and all that kind of things, it becomes an issue. And the other big issue actually is sometimes even for the believer, after a while in a marriage, you may start to question, why did I marry this person? Right? And I've heard a story on one of the radio stations where it was talking about Christian women, a woman who was in that situation. She had a husband that's a non-believer, and then she went on one of those church camps, right? And then she spent 5 days in a church camp where she suddenly met, in small work groups together with another man who's not married. And then they actually feel for each other because suddenly you realize that, hey, here's a man in the church group who has all the right sort of beliefs that I look for in a man. And then the man I'm with doesn't have it. That's right. So suddenly there's a light bulb just turn on and it says, what did I do? But then now you have to make a decision to stop that even because that's wrong. Right? So it's the kind of issues that will crop up if you from the very beginning make the wrong step to marry someone who's non-believer.
Yeah. See, you don't realize, that you are doing it. You're doing it wrong, right? By being unequally yoked. And it's for me because I was, I was young and I didn't have any cell group. I didn't have any older counsel. And being a Catholic, we don't read the Bible, right? So I don't even know that that was wrong. To me, it was love. Someone loves me, I love somebody. So what's your problem? Right? But hey, it was a big problem. And you don't even realize, how subtle the change is until you don't even realize, and you suddenly become an idol worshiper. And that's the devil's scheme. You don't even know it. You don't even realize it. But having said all that, we thank the Lord. It's really by God's grace and mercy that we are married for this long, 31 years coming, and that we've grown together in the Lord. And I think, the mistakes that I've made, that David made, I go back to Romans 8:28, right? All things work for good, for the purpose of those who love Him. And the Lord is, the greatest lover of our souls. Yes. The greatest lover. Today being Valentine's Day, no Valentine can satisfy that love except our Jesus Christ, the Messiah. And He was good. He took us out of Singapore. We were living in Singapore. We emigrated to Canada. And it's I won't say funny, for lack of a better word. But I just spoke, I said to David, I said, we're in a foreign country. The moral values are very different in North America than it is in Asia. Why don't we go to church? Right, there was a Malaysian Singaporean Bible church. So I said, we go to church for the sake of our son, who was then 2 years old. And so, for me, I'm more comfortable in a Christian background. For him, it's not so. So I said, let's do this. Let's just go so that he can go to Sunday school. And then we sit in the service. They stand, you stand. You're comfortable, they stand, you stand. They sit, we sit. You don't have to sing. Just stand and sit, and that's it, right? Yeah. And by the grace of our Lord, and I really, no words are enough. The gratitude I feel towards our Lord. That when I was such a great sinner, He never gave up on me. 1 year sitting and listening to the pastor preaching. One day, when we were driving home, and I thank God I was sitting down, because I think if I heard that, I would have fallen over. And he looked at me and he says, will you get rebaptized if I got baptized? And so that started our journey as a couple, then equally yoked. It was a mistake I made, but God didn't see it as that. He saw it as an opportunity to turn it around for our good, so that in turn, we can be a couple serving the Lord together. And I praise Him because it is not us. It was Him who chose to pull us back. And for the young singles, I encourage you, I exhort you, please, please, don't even go into that route. Don't even start. How good looking the guy is, how charismatic, how beautiful. Don't even go that direction. Because God has someone already in mind for you. And all you have to do, Penny was saying, the key thing is prayer. And yes, it's prayer. Prayer has kept us together. Trust in the Lord has kept us together. And if you believe this Lord who gave up His life for you, He gave up His life for you, wouldn't you think that He would find the best soulmate for you, made for each other, so that the two of you can serve the Lord and your household thereafter? So please, I plead with you, Don't go that route at all, but trust in the Lord that He will be the one who will supply, and He will blow your mind with the spouse that He's going to give you.
One of the things key is not to think that I can save them. It's as if like God cannot save them. You got to save them. So never have that mentality. Thank you so much. And I think you guys are going to give a talk in a couple of weeks in the Oasis. I think so that'll be great. We really encourage you to come up for that also. And Penny, your last question right here is for those who are dating and or thinking about dating, what advice you would give?
Same. Yeah, don't be unequally yoked. I got out of one marriage that we were not Christian then, and then I found God in between towards almost the end of the marriage through my mom, and then I woke up. And in between those time when I was single before I met Andy, I had many okay, I'm not talking big, but I had a few guys, good looking or rich or royalty, that I can be a princess or whatever. But I told myself, I'm not going to that route again. I said, I want God to send me a man of His choice. And I don't even know. I don't even have to go out to date or go out to parties and all that. Friends has been telling me, how are you going to look for a partner? How are you going to look for a boyfriend if you're just staying home and go to church and stay home and go to church? I said, God will send me one if the time is right. When the time is right, He will send me one, which He did. We were actually kind of fixed. We were introduced, and then we got married. So yeah, and we got my mom and I. The first thing when I knew him, the first thing I asked was, "Are you Christian?" And he's like, "Yes, I am a Christian, but I'm not really Sunday church goer." I said, "Yeah, but you sure you're a Christian? You don't have idols at home? You don't? No, I don't do that. Your family don't do that." Okay. So that's very important. Don't, like what Sister Patricia said, don't go that way. And there's this I want to say to the single, especially. Go for men who loves God more than He loves you. Yes. And then He will know how to love you right. Yes. And please, you don't have to chase what God will send. If you trust that God will send you the man or the woman one day, you don't have to go chasing. He will send you. Send you.
Try to differentiate between I guess my time and the time that the younger generation today. When I thought about this, I went back to my first marriage. Like Pastor Neil said earlier, you plan so much for the wedding. I think my first marriage we had about 50 tables of guests. So imagine after the marriage failed, when I went back to Perth for the first year, the amount of question that I have to face with this 15 table of guests. How's your wife? How's your wedding? I have to deal with that question. All these uncle and aunties. So just remember that it's not how many people you invite to the wedding or how many people you bring to. You have to answer to them one day and to God. If you don't remember that. If you think everything is about glamorous, about showing off, about just letting the whole world know, or getting a big amount of lycee, you have to deal with that if you don't take care of your marriage. And nowadays, I come to think of it, it's even, I don't know how you guys will do with it now, because I haven't seen anybody who's been through that. Because now, every relationship that I see a lot of people have are all over Facebook. Instagram. I mean, when when you have a failure relationship, how are you going to deal with that? Delete everyone? Delete every photos? Delete every numbers? I really don't know what you do. So, I mean, we're in the world of deletion now. You don't like something, you delete it. But now, you have to remember, guys, we only have pictures or photo album you can hide away, you can throw it away. Now you think that you guys are having all the relations that you have are on Facebook, are in public. Now, how are you going to deal with that? So before you start a relationship, you really need to pray and think. Because once you post it continuously, non-stop, it's going to follow you the rest of your life. I could hide away from my uncle and auntie in Australia because I don't see them all the time. I only go back once a year. But now, after many years, I understand. But in Facebook, what do? Do you just delete somebody off your life? You delete that part of your life? I would guess now, if you delete, probably if you have a relation for 3 years, there'll be nothing to see for the last 3 years because everything was with that person. So what do you do in life like that? So nowadays, I guess I'm not speaking only to the young, even to those. I've been to a lesson that teaches we are different kind of human, different emotional, we have weaknesses, we have strength. I admire those people nowadays who can stay single, who can wait, who rather wait than jump into the wrong relationships. Because this is the hardest. Because nowadays with all this dating.com, findapartner.com, youarelonely.com, you will never be lonely.com, or if you're lonely.com, you will have so many friends that you want. But I think now the challenge for this generation, or those who are single, not necessarily young, I think staying single and able to find a great partner that you can partner for life, hey, it's harder than what we ever did. So I'm going to say, pray and believe in the Lord. I mean, I didn't land from the moon. But wisdom, as we always say, God gives us. Think hard, think clear, look further. Don't just think of what I want now. You're not borrowing money from Standard Chartered Bank or Citibank that will ever say you want holiday, you do it now. You want money, I give you now. You want shirt, go and buy now. No. Relationship, you have to look very far. So before you commit to anything, think about what am I going to bring to this? Can I take it all the way? All the way to end of life, not till divorce do us part. All the way before I even start anything. So basically, don't start anything you can't finish. Because the whole world is going to look at you. I don't know how you guys see yourself in Facebook, in Instagram, because you post everything when you have your loved ones. Everyone will judge you. Everyone will ask you. Everyone will put a comment on your life. So, pray, wait, be patient, and believe in Him. He will guide you to the right person. And I come to this point, maybe I'd like to say too, for some people in life, it's okay to stay single. If you are easily hurt by other people, and you know, if you're not marrying another Christian, you are going to be hurt. Why do it in the first place? Why do it in the first place? Unless, as they've said, unless the person is a Christian, equally yoked, why get into something that you know you're going to run into trouble in the future? Because if the person is not equally yoked, you are asking for trouble even before you start. Basically, it's just as simple as that. There's no secret to it, none at all. So, be patient, be godly, trust in the Lord, and pray. Amen.
Thank you, Andy. This, I heard a pastor say he was driving in Australia and there was a huge billboard. It said this, You're talking about all this .com. He says life is short, have an affair. You know, so that's what these things are all out there today. You know, it's just here to allure you and say it's okay. But I'm here. I'm telling you, please heed this information. You know, it's more than information. This is life changing. Alan, just come on up, guys. We have the last question here, and for Dennis and Emily, and this is it. To live a holy and pure life is not easy. How can a single man or a woman can keep himself pure until marriage?
For me, I think the most important thing is that first, you have to guard your heart. I guess it's very important to guard your heart, because if you don't, then you will get easily go into temptation. So it is very important that you have to guard your heart, especially like, those are going to get married. And I think you also have to respect each other or give a space. Don't put too much affection. Like if you're not yet married, if you're just planning or you get married soon, I think you have to respect maybe you put boundary. And yeah, I think aside from guarding your heart, and then you put boundary, respect until the day you get married, and then I think that's the best thing that you can give to your husband later on, is on that day. Instead of experimenting, doing things that, maybe, So instead of those things, maybe. And also, I think that I think you need someone to encourage you. People that will pray for you, encourage you. Yeah, to remind you, because nowadays it's very difficult, like for teenagers or those couple that soon to be married. It's very, very difficult. It's because of the surroundings itself. It really gives them a lot of temptation, I guess. So I think that you have to be surrounded with Christian people. That's very important. And make sure you guard your heart. Don't the temptation is really, it's just like one, what do you call it? Just like just a snap, like you just do it, then you just realize you did it, then you just say sorry. I mean, you feel sorry, right? And you can't get that back anymore. So being pure, pure before getting married is very, very important, I guess. So just guard your heart.
I guess for me, it's more about testimony. Maybe a lot of you, especially the youth, already knows that me and Alili actually a product of prayer. A lot of you already knows that it's just a situation like this. I come from a youth that is a main church, probably the Calvary church, and she came from a branch church, or rather the other way around. She came from a mother church, and I came from a branch church. Like we don't know each other. We are not sharing the same Sunday school or group together. But me, as in a branch church, like in Cebu, was a closely involved in youth, and she is also closely involved in youth. So she got a relationship, I got a relationship, we fall out of love together. She prayed, I prayed, and somehow, somewhere, prayer binds us together. So same thing like as what Brother David is saying, is that if you pray for somebody and you believe that the Lord will surely find a way to bind you together. It's just, people may be saying that it's a coincidence or a chance, but for me or for us, we strongly believe in that, because when we came here in Calvary, we know that some friends of Alili was also a friend of Sister Rowie in that church. So it's just kind of a very small world for us. And to the youth, I can say that pray and believe that the Lord will bring a special person for you, like the way that she bring Alili for my life.
Thank you, Dennis. Can we give all the trouble, great band, David and Pat, Lisa, Andy and Penny,